welcome to FMCG by Alex. Today I would like to continue in the series of A to Z in FMCG, and today we are covering the distributor. So, what's driving them, the coverage, the cash flow, and also the channel conflict. So, let's start with how distributors work. You've already gone over the salesman. So, what does the salesman do? Who works for the distributor? But the distributor itself, I'm talking really about the owner, the internal workings, the operation, so to speak, of the distributor. So they work on an inventory-based model. So they buy from the principal, they hold stock, and they resell to retailers or possibly smaller distributors and wholesalers. They are limited by territory. So normally you have coverage models that are basically assigning a specific territory to a distributor or a specific channel within a specific territory. It's always territory-based, but sometimes it's even limited by channels. So let's say you need a distributor that is going to modern trade. So modern trade is basically all the supermarkets, mini markets, hypermarkets in a city. Then you assign a distributor specifically for that channel. If that distributor has the capability to also, for example, cover HoReCa, meaning food service, or traditional trade, you can also give those channels to these distributors. But as distributors go, normally these guys actually have some sort of specialism. So you're looking at people who are good at one specific channel. So that's why a lot of companies are looking to split basically the channels between different distributors. So that's from the principal side one reason. Specialism, someone cannot be good at everything. And secondly, this is maybe a little bit more towards the agenda of an FMCG company, an FMCG brand owner, that you don't want your distributor to be too dominant. You have basically distributors that can be so dominant, so strong, so doing so much for you basically in one city that it can be dangerous if something happens to their distributor. So either they start making all sorts of demands from you because they are very dominant in your structure, or at some point maybe they are growing too fast. They can't actually keep up with the growth, because in essence every single growth objective that you set for them, it also strains their cash flow. But I'll go into that during the rest of the video. You see a lot of companies, like say Nestle, for example, is a very good example where they really split cities. So they have maybe one distributor for the city until a certain business size, and then they decide to split it into and they appoint another distributor for half of the city. Still, doesn't always end up with the distributor being happy about it, but that's the choice of the principal in the end. So they operate normally within assigned geographic zones. This can be city-based, this can be an entire province, or even an entire country or an entire island, basically. Then you're talking about the assets. So assets of a distributor are normally the sales force. So they have a sales team that goes out to the different accounts. So that can be for the modern trade, can be people who are taking the orders from the modern trade. It can be salesmen who are on the road on the motorcycle going to the traditional trade or to restaurants, etc. Then, of course, the products that are ordered need to be delivered. So it can be either canvas, so meaning cash sales, or taking order. Taking order is something where someone takes an order and then later on it's delivered. For that, you need a delivery fleet, motorbikes, trucks, etc. Depending on the territory, they have also other types of delivery vehicles. But I mean, that's depends a little bit on what is, more towards the things that are practical, practical in a certain area. So at some point you want to deliver maybe maximum 100 kilometers around your base. So that is probably the most efficient or optimal way of saying, like, you have a warehouse and then 100 kilometers around it you have delivery. The thing is that there are certain areas that are maybe less passable, difficult terrain, dirt roads, etc., etc. So you need to have different modes of transportation, especially when your products are a bit fragile. That's basically what I mean. Then they have a small warehouse and a finance team, finance admin team, basically. So you have a small warehouse, meaning like, okay, they need to buy the product from the principal, they need to stock it until it's delivered. And then, of course, you have the finance admin team, which all the orders need to be processed. There needs to be paid. There are collectors. There are people who are, making sure that all the the stuff that is shipped is actually properly administered and also paid for. Then they use usually systems. So I have to say this is something where I'm comparing really the most simple distributors in more rural areas with the national distributors. National distributors are the most advanced in terms of systems. They have quite advanced ERP systems already, but those are national distributors. So if you're talking about local distributors, these are guys actually that maybe only cover one city or one cluster or one province. Um, they usually use basic ERP or just Excel, WhatsApp, basically to get orders, to process orders, and few are having a more sophisticated systems, mainly because of the cost. Having said that, 2025 we are already advancing very much, where even small ERP systems are available for a lot of distributors. But it really depends a little bit on when the distributor starts. If you would start a distribution company tomorrow, of course, you would like to implement it right away. But people who have been doing it manually since 1982, they might actually not see the benefit of investing a lot of money into a more sophisticated system. It's been done. It's going well, and why would you change it? Why would you need to change? So those things are, the battles where the next generation of owners, the son or the grandson or the granddaughter, or the daughter, basically need to move this ahead. So normally in Indonesia, also the second generation and third generation, they have already studied abroad. The father and mother actually did very well for themselves, so they managed to put their kids to college. Therefore, new technologies and new ideas, also usually growth ideas, are actually implemented by the following generations. Now let's go over the margin structure of a distributor. So this is a rudimentary table, of course, where you would say a base margin is 5 to 12% of the revenue. So you're talking about a difference in that. Is like larger companies, like for example Nestle, they will be closer to that 5%, while smaller companies probably need to do 12%, or maybe even 15 to 20%, depending really on how badly you need this distributor and how slow your product is moving. So normally there is a trade-off between stock turns, meaning how fast is actually the stuff selling. So Nestle is a very fast moving product. Therefore, Nestle actually has the ability to squeeze the margin of the distributor, because hey, you're converting into cash within days. You don't need to wait for months actually to convert it to cash. Therefore, your margin is smaller because I'm giving you that. So this is also more like where distributors are lining up to distribute the principal, rather than the other way around, where you really need to look for distributors and hope that someone wants to work with you. Everybody wants to, of course, sell the fast moving items. Now, these are the base margins. So you basically have this for stocking and reselling. So they need to buy the product. They have a TOP normally of about 30 days. Can be longer, can be shorter, depending a little bit on, again, on the principle. But normally 30 days is the rule of thumb for most of the FMCG companies in Indonesia. Then you have incentives and rebates. So this can be various things, basically. It can be a bonus for doing a certain volume or growing a certain percentage in a year, or things that are, for example, given as a bad stock allowance. So can be, for example, look, I give you 1%. I used to work for Ultramilk. Basically, we had a bad stock allowance. I will not disclose how much it was, otherwise I think my old boss will be very upset with me. But we would give a certain allowance of for bad stock, so to actually process the bad stock. This is to help the distributor. So in essence, you would give a flat fee, and if the distributor managed to keep the bad stock under it, they would still get the rest of it. And that really worked quite well, because if you look at the rest of it is actually for me, and the money is for me. Now, if you're basically doing quite a decent amount of stock, and you get a percentage of that as a bad stock allowance, your incentive to actually keep the bad stock is low, is actually quite high. So that is one of the examples. There are other things that can be. So there are also basically companies that are doing, for example, logistics fees. Like Frisian Flag used to have a system where they would, pay for the salesman, pay for a number of other things, and then you would just get 5% as a distributor. So basically, the bare bones just for the use of your warehouse and your working capital. So that is more or less it. They would, in essence, pay for all. I don't know whether they're still using that in 2025, but that was the old system, I've been told. So, like I say, the logistic fees are optional if you're talking about principal pays for the delivery in essence. So yeah, that is whether or not you have to pay for your own deliveries or not. Then of course cash discounts. So basically, if you have early payment, cash discounts can be 1 to 2%. So that could be an interesting thing for various distributors, especially if there are companies that are really like in a cash crunch. Like sometimes the principal, the FMCG brand owner, is having a problem with cash flow. Then having earlier payment from distributors can also be very beneficial to ease those burdens, so to speak. So cash flow, can be both ways. Like the brand owner and the distributor can be in a crunch. Having said that, if you're looking at the principal needs to do only 20-30% gross margin on their product as a FMCG company. So you're talking about maybe net margin 10-15%. You're looking at a distributor. If everything is deducted in the end, you're talking about maybe 1 to maybe 3% that they can still bag at the bottom line. So if you're looking at, do I really take a lot of risk, or do I have a lot of money to invest in anything beyond what the principal is paying for? So sometimes it can sound a bit like to brand owners like, oh, a distributor is just using my working capital for a TOP. They're asking for everything with regards to help. It can be, it can seem a bit one-sided, where the distributor is just asking for something that you could possibly do yourself. But let's face it, you're not paying them quite that much money to actually take that risk for you. So that is the thing I need to and a good relationship with the distributor can really infinitely expand your own coverage, because hiring salespeople to do this, let's say a distributor in the city has 4 or 5 salespeople, you have to hire all these guys and actually only sell your products, rather than the distributor actually accumulating multiple principals and spreading that cost of delivery, especially through over various principles. Then that is something you can't match on your own, so to speak. So there are principals that are big enough to do that. They have multiple products. Let's say Indo Food, you're talking about Orang Tua Group has quite a large, Mayora, of course, has a large portfolio, Garuda Food. These guys also have their own distribution companies usually. And that is something they supplement with local distributors like this, so to speak. So let's crawl into the mind of the distributor at this moment. So where the principal normally has a different agenda from the distributor. Pushing for more outlet coverage, for example, is something I've been doing for quite a while as well, and the distributor always pushed back to some extent. So you have to imagine that when you start working with the distributor, they cover a specific number of outlets. Unless it's a new distributor, you have to start from zero. Then also you should wonder whether you want to work with them right away or not. But the point is that, let's say, out of 4,000 outlets in a town, they cover 1,000. Now, you can be sure that those 1,000 outlets actually are the best outlets that they cover. Not necessarily for your product, but the best outlets for them. Your product needs to go to certain channels. That is why I also advise to really look at, before you work with a distributor, to really look at where are they going, how are they actually selling the product, which other brands are they carrying. That is normally a good indicator of whether this is the partner for you or not. Distributors can be good, but maybe not necessarily always good for you. So that is, the thing that you need to consider. So more coverage is more cost for them. So if you say, "Oh, I'm already covering the 1,000 good outlets in this, the best 1,000 outlets in this town, and I need to cover more, what's in it for me?" So more outlets means that you have to hire more salespeople, more delivery vehicles need to be purchased. You need to also have larger credit exposures. You have more product in the market that's unpaid for, bad debt risk, and you have to hold more inventory because these outlets also need more supplies. And The problem for these guys is that the return on this effort is uncertain. So unless you help them out, meaning that's where the principal really needs to step up and say, look, I'm going to subsidize this. I'm going to subsidize your salespeople. I'm going to do cost sharing with you because I am pushing you to open up a new area or to cover more outlets. Hey, you don't need to carry that burden alone because then again, I'm paying you between 5 and 12%. That is not enough to actually invest in that. So not all outlets may perform. If you're talking about new outlets, especially, you have an unknown. This is actually something that nobody knows how they're going to function, and is it going to be worth it? So some may be ordered sporadically or in tiny volumes, and of course, all the increased operational complexity doesn't always lead to the growth you are looking for. Now, then there's of course a cash flow crunch because many small retailers want credit, so you need to expand your credit as well. And of course, distributors, yeah, they need to pay quicker to the brand than actually the retailers are paying them. So if you have a lot of risk plus slow moving SKUs, meaning the product doesn't move as fast as you want in those outlets, yeah, that is a working capital strain. So this is where you need to constantly think of that part. So what is in it for the distributor? Distributors are also people, so relationship goes a long way, but in the end it also is, under the line, is it actually something that is beneficial for me or not? And as a distributor, you really need to understand that that tiny margin, so that 1 to maybe 3%, they are still bagging as their own income. Yeah, that is something that quite quickly erodes if you don't have, if you're forcing them to invest in things that are beyond that. So, what makes distributors happy? So, what drives them, so to speak? Fast moving, so turnover velocity, fast moving SKUs, it's less capital stuck. So meaning I want to just convert to cash quickly, quickly, quickly. Um, they want to limit the number of drops, so I don't want to have one carton, half a carton to an outlet. They prefer bigger orders per outlet, so minimize the delivery cost. This is always the game where you say, okay, can I make that 2% in 2.1% profit, that sort of thing. In the end, you need to find a way to convince these guys that, look, if you invest now, or we invest now together, we work at this together, so we are doing this small retail basically, that in the end it will actually lead to the dominance of the brand, therefore more sales and an easier life for you basically. So it's a bit of give and take. Yeah, so in the end, that is I think the core of the conversation you should have heart to heart with the distributor. Some guys get it, some guys don't. There are very old-fashioned distributors, first generation, still alive, yeah, maybe like already pushing 70, 80 years old now. These guys are difficult to convince. Some of them are sharp as a razor with regards to their mind. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's stuck in a way of thinking, but they also feel like, hey, I've been doing this since before you were born. Literally, people said that to me. I've been distributor since 1975. I was born in 1976, so before you actually were born, I already sold this product. So who are you to tell me what to do? Now, that's something where, not in direct ways, but it was more or less what it came down to. Then you're talking about changing those ways. I say it needs to be beneficial for them. So you need to also be very respectful to people who are first generation distributors. It's all about respect, about honoring the legacy and honoring these people's contribution also to the company, so to speak. If you are joining a big company, basically. So if you're newly signing up a distributor, yeah, you would need to really avoid this sort of distributor unless they know what they're doing, obviously. But changing the way they work, the very traditional way they work, especially if it's the owner directly to the sales team, then you have a recipe for problems. If the owner already has a professional structure in place, like a sales manager and supervisors who are controlling all of the salesmen, yeah, then you can have a better idea of, yeah, these guys actually have gone through the process of improving their operations and more modernizing it. So even if the old man or the old lady is still in charge, so to speak, and the first generation, the kids might already have enough contribution to change things. Then, of course, they don't want to have stock risk. The stock risk they want to reduce. They prefer to have as little stock as possible in their warehouse while not running out. So they'd rather be out of stock. So, hey, there's no stock than actually having the risk of stock that is there too long, gathering dust. Or new products. New products are also very conservative that don't sell. New product distributions that fail basically because you miscalculated the forecasts. You are very optimistic about how it will do, and in the end, you order 10,000 cartons, and at the end of the month, only 2,000 left the warehouse. There's 8,000 gathering dust. So, this is something that happens. There's a lot of companies that actually have gambled, and the distributors are picking up the tab, so to speak. You need to help them to manage that and to actually flush out things that are not moving fast enough. Sometimes distributors are very nervous right away. It's almost like 2 weeks after the product arrives, or even the week after the product arrives. Oh, this is already piling up in my warehouse. When will you help me, etc. This is more like a mechanism because they might have other principles that are really not forthcoming with help, and some people just simply are like that, I guess. So in that sense, don't let them push you too much to be to discount things very quickly, but do have an ear for helping, and be open to what they need. You basically give them what they need, they will be golden for you, basically. So the heart of the distributor you won with, it's give and take, so to speak. Then, of course, ease of doing business. If you have a very complicated system and pricing structure, etc., they will not be not be interested to support you as much. More work for me, uh, mainly because the owner will pass it off to an operations person. The operations people are paid on the salary. They don't get paid more or less by doing this extra work. So therefore, they prefer not to. Not everybody. You have some very good ones. I've been made friends with a lot of good operations people who don't own shares in the company, and they went above and beyond the call of duty. But in general, you should not count on that sort of outliers, basically, in terms of positive exceptions to the rule, so to speak. So easier working. You should make things easy for them. Be flexible. Not make too much problems right away. So that is also something. I'm Dutch. So Dutch people normally make problems right away from the start, and then afterwards it's smooth sailing because we've already dealt with all the problems up front. Indonesia is a bit different, where you don't make problems up front because then you start working with each other, and all the problems that come, you resolve in the relationship later on. Some more problems down the line, probably, but I mean, so you just distribute the problems that are inevitably going to come up differently across the relationship. Then, how supportive is your sales team? So you need to have people who are really good with relationships, so people who are really having the best interest of the distributor at heart. You have people who they can really feel like, hey, I have someone who listens to me, someone who helps me. Avoid having people that become like another employee of the distributor. So meaning like they are more looking out for the distributor than for yourself, so to speak. Like sometimes I had to question people in the past, like, who are you working for us, the brand owner, or for the distributor? Now, that is a very tough conversation to have once in a while. In the end, you work for the principal, you work for the brand owner. Therefore, the distributor actually is someone who you need to treat as a friend, but your friend doesn't always get what he or she wants. No, so that is the core of it. So you need to also still look out for your own interest and the interest of your employer, who pays your salary. Then brand support. So in the end, distributors are just doing the distribution, so they're not investing any marketing promotion. They can't, because again, you're paying them very little, and the margin is quite small in comparison. It looks big for you, but like I said, what is left at the end of the day is actually very little. So they can't do that, and you need to give that support. So in the end, if you are just saying, "Hey, I'm going to ship a container," and I'm going to lean back and okay, this is it. So I'm done. Your problem. You bought it from me, and now you need to sell it. If you don't uh, expect if don't if they are you expect them to do all of the work themselves and you don't support it with activities, promotions, etc., and really do the trade marketing mix properly in their area, then yeah, you have a difficult time getting them motivated. If you are, as a principal, disinterested in them, then why would they be interested in your brand? So that is actually, I think, the core of the question you would ask yourself. So, what is the recipe for success with distributors? Now, this is something I've also drawn on all the experience I have in my life, distributors in various countries, various places, but I'm going to focus on Indonesia. You need to build a joint plan. So, you need to involve them very early on because you're asking them to give a forecast. Okay, how much can you sell this year? I would like you to sell this much. Can you? Okay, can you not? Why not? Why? What is needed to actually do it? So, there's those things. You need to own the volume target, so they need to support it. Okay, hey, yes, but we are going to do it. We're going to try and do this. And these are the support activities that I'm going to deploy. These are the people I'm going to give you. These are the promotions I'm going to give you. This is the budget that I'm going to give you. We're going to have influencers supporting offline retail as well, for example. All these things are mix, like sort of symphony, basically, you need to compose in order to get along with distributors, and the plan needs to be joined, so you need to involve them every step of the way. Some people are more open to do that than others. Like I said, again, not everybody is interested in marketing or how to do it, and then maybe they have many principles actually bothering them with that. So keep it short and simple, but you need to involve them every step of the way, and they need to say yes to it. If you're pushing it one-sided to a distributor, yeah, that will be a big problem because they will not buy in. Then you need to basically tell them where to expand. So you need to prioritize the high potential clusters first. Like in essence, what one of the mistakes I've made in the past as well was basically just say, look, expand everywhere. That is something that is paralyzing. So for us, it was simple because we knew where to expand, but they needed to basically have a target. So in essence, you need to see it as a task you need to break up in different pieces. So this is also where you are going to say, look, we're going to attack this area first, then that area, then that area. After we declare victory in each area, we can move on to the next one. So these are, this is almost, like say, vital for distributors that don't have a sophisticated system. So you need to do that sort of data analysis for them. Plus, you need to tell them what to do. They just do what you ask them to do. If you basically give them a very vague direction, a directional order, so to speak, hey, expand everywhere, then they will not know where to go. So when you give discounts, don't do it at their expense. Also, really help them with this. You don't erode them with excessive discounts to modern trade or direct online channels, basically. You need to really protect the margins that they have because it's already not very much that they have left over. So if you take maybe a percentage point, it could really be the difference between profitable or not profitable, or fun to distribute you or not distribute you, basically. Then you need to invest in marketing, in pull, so to speak. That is the ads, the sampling, the trade promos, all of the things that, they actually have friction to sell in. So they have resistance from retailers to sell in. You need to basically make sure the product is really moving off the shelf, and yeah, it's fun for everybody. So this is still your brand. They are just like a logistics company with a sales team, so to speak. Then you need to offer the credit support. So consider the financing. We have had a distributor financing program, for example, in my previous companies. Or share risk, or you guarantee certain things. We have some things with a consignment program, for example, for a channel where the distributor said, like, oh, I'm not really comfortable doing that because I don't have coverage there, and consignment is something that might get the product in, but we don't know what it's going to do. Now that is a calculated risk. You have a volume that you actually want to do. So that is basically a risk you can write off as a marketing expense in essence. And if it works, no harm done. If it doesn't work, you know exactly what you lost. So that is what you're prepared to lose, so to speak. Now, Distributors can't be asked to take that risk, that consignment thing. There might be distributors that do that. There's maybe one or two that say, "Oh, for very small market tests, I'm fine to do that," basically. But again, consignment is a huge administrative burden. Like it sounds very good, like oh, the product stays the property of the principal, it's still a return, that sort of thing. In essence, everything is sell or return. If your product is expired, basically, then retailers will return it to you. The distributor will return it to you as well as a principal. So consignment is just a matter of like the payment is stuck. So there's no payment yet to the distributor from the retailer if it's on consignment. Therefore, and there is a big issue where if things get lost, stolen, or damaged in the store, the responsibility is still with the guy who gave it into consignment, which is the distributor. So if you, as a principal, are not guaranteeing that or supporting that, subsidizing or supplementing that, yeah, then there is no incentive for the distributor to do that. Okay, I'm taking on more risk, which is comes back to that eroding the margins because yeah, more bad stock, basically, more risk, more shrinkage. Shrinkage is basically a fancy word for stolen goods, basically missing goods, basically that have been stolen from the store. Don't underestimate that is a big impact. Normally, the store is the one who is actually taking that risk if they buy it, but at consignment, it's your risk if you are a principal or the distributor. So these things are important to keep under consideration. Then some final thoughts. So distributors are not just order takers. They are really your partners, an extension of your own company. So financial and logistical partners, as it says here. So you really need to see them as, instead of hiring my own sales team, I have a distributor who does this. So it's not ideal, it's not optimal than having your own people, but this is a far cheaper option than having your own sales team, so to speak. So this is something where a lot of companies actually seem to miss the point where distributors are sometimes seen as a burden, like, oh, it's not functioning, distributor is not performing. You have to look at yourself first. What can I do to actually make sure this distributor is performing? The problem is that if a distributor is already not performing, meaning the sales are low and they are reluctant to actually move, then you've already actually reached a point where the spirit of the distributor, that's a very elusive concept, but motivation is like, my first experience with this brand has been negative. So meaning that is a spiral, actually negative spiral, vicious cycle that you are getting into that only gets worse. People are not moving because this product is not moving. The salespeople have a perception in the field like, hey, this product is not moving. You need to lift that spirit. That's why constantly your own team needs to manage this. You need to manage these distributors in order to every single level in the distributor, you need to have contact points where you are actually also, as a brand owner, are really moving towards joint visits, visit these guys, make it a contest, give some presents to people when you come. Just an idea that they remember you and say, hey, this is a positive experience I had with this distributor. So in the end, what I did, for example, was do a contest. So if I actually would visit a distributor, then I would say, hey, guys, if you today, how much are you going to sell? How much are you going to sell? How much are you going to sell? Now, then they would say, I'm going to get orders from 5 stores. I'm going to get orders from 10 stores, etc. If you achieve that, this is a cash prize that you get at the end of the day, or I would buy cake for everybody, or a cash prize and cake, depending a little bit on the situation. But I mean, to make it sure that a contest between them, so okay, you commit to this, you commit to that, that is basically the sort of motivation these guys need to get out of a rut. You have to imagine that when I came to visit for a reason, because the distributor was not performing. So that's the reason why we needed to really crowbar our way into a positive mindset there. Now, you need to also understand the risk, the margin, and of course the coverage trade-off. So in essence, you shouldn't push them to do something just because you want them to. You need to really understand the reason why they don't want to do something, or maybe say yes and then do no. If you don't listen to them, then they might promise you things that they will not achieve. So that's frustration, and then you get a perspective like, oh, this distributor is not doing anything for me. No, that is the core of actually all the woes, because distributors also have a reputation. Oh, this is good, this is bad. Big distributor doesn't always mean that it's better than a small distributor, and vice versa. So if you look at big distributors, normally are more focused on the larger principles, just like the small distributors are. Just the larger principals are usually huge, basically. So they're big distributors for a reason. So they have multiple cities where they are actually distributing a brand, and you as a smaller brand could, fit in, but it's a difficult thing to actually reach a certain level of significance to actually have the focus of this distributor, the attention. Smaller distributors may have the same problem. Don't get me wrong; it's also there. It's not a blessing in disguise, but usually you can still talk directly to the owner. There can be some sort of plan in place where you say, "Hey, this is going to work for us. We want to build it up to this level." And smaller distributors are maybe less dependent on these larger distributors, for these larger brands, basically. So these larger distributors, of course, have quite intricate relationships with the brands they distribute. Larger, more to lose, so to speak. And a good principle, of course, empowers distributors. So you need to also push them to grow sustainably, not just recklessly. Like, oh, I'm going to push 20 containers of a product into you just because that's on my target. No, you should actually also see whether they can sell it and whether they can sustain this growth. So if you look at promotion, so in the end, nobody wants to have bad stock. Nobody wants to have a warehouse full of unsellable stock. Nobody wants to have returns from retailers. Retailers also don't want to have products stuck in their system. You can quickly ruin a brand or also distributor's reputation if you are actually the one not taking product back because you overestimated your capacity, and you made a reckless judgment call where in the end you can't grow sustainably. That is the danger. A lot of brands actually went into that trap where good salespeople are actually not salespeople that are selling as much as possible. They sell things that are sustainable, so recurring sales, basically. A good salesman estimates what someone needs, what a retailer needs, just like a salesman in a traditional trade store needs to really estimate what is realistic. Therefore, anyone managing a distributor also needs to really manage properly what a distributor needs. And if there is a mistake, meaning I push too much stock in there or I have too little stock, you need to really react very quickly to fix that. So, meaning send more stock or take stock back, actually, that is stuck in the system, or maybe delay payment a little bit. That is playing around with a little bit with the tools you have to actually appease the distributor. Relationship is key. So relationships are key. That is, in essence, where I would like to culminate my entire story of today. Contracts are actually pieces of paper, so that sounds like I'm making it very trivial, but contracts, of course, are legally binding, and of course you can sue people, and of course you can go to court and all those things. However, if you look at a good relationship, as soon as you actually end up in dispute and lawyers are talking to each other, of course, you've already lost. So there's nothing that you can actually salvage anymore from the relationship. So if your relationship is good, you don't need the contract. So you don't need to really go back to the contract. Contracts are good. It's pieces of paper where you write down what you agreed, so everything is clear. You can always go back to that and say, did you forget? This is actually what we agreed up front. That's the way I use contracts also in distributor context. But a lot of distributors I've worked with will never sign contracts. So that is actually one of the things that very simple contracts that really didn't cover the the relationship in that sense. That also includes actually bank guarantees. So in the past, if you look at small principals, they will not have bank guarantees. Basically, that they will just buy and sell. Larger principals normally request bank guarantees in order to cover the transactions. Because if you have, let's say, $10 million worth of product in a distributor, and you feel that might be a bit shaky, or you feel it needs to be covered, the bank guarantees actually are you need to cover that plus the in transit to the distributor and the stuff you're still sending, basically. So let's say 10 million, maybe you need to have 15 million worth of bank guarantees in place. Now, the problem with distributors is that they don't really like that. So, of course, they need to pawn assets basically to the bank, put up collateral basically in order to get that bank guarantee in place, because if at some point they default, that asset is actually going to be liquidated by the bank in order to pay the holder of the bank guarantee. So in the end, this is stuff that my good friend who used to work for one of the larger FMCG companies in Indonesia once told me that he invested more in trying to get to know these guys or go to their house, meet their family, etc. Initially, they would actually have a bank guarantee in place, but maybe at the end, like 15 years later, they might have a bank guarantee that only covers like maybe 10-20% of the entire volume that they were doing. So it's a very small comparison. So if actually something would go wrong with that distributor, maybe they could get back 10-20% of whatever is outstanding, basically. But the core is these guys have proven that they are not gone tomorrow. Yeah, these distributors are actually in a good shape. They're financially strong, financially stable. You know these people. You know actually when problems arise that they will not hide it from you, basically. And this is, of course, a risk, but I've worked for a company as well that really needed everything to be covered by a bank guarantee by law, the law of the company, sorry, so to speak, or the regulation of the company. They had bad experiences in the past with distributors defaulting. So you are actually a product of your experience in the end. So, and I can't blame, if you had that experience, you can't blame anyone for insisting on that either. So personally, I believe, it's a bit of give and take. So in the end, you spread the risk, you share the risk. And if you look at getting to know each other and I would say, in the relationship, you are really able to solve a lot of problems. And if you also limit your own exposure, your own risk, in essence, by insuring it, or you are basically looking at indeed a limited bank guarantee where at least you get something if there is a problem. That could actually be enough. To solve to mitigate your risk, so to speak. So having said that, very situational. That's the thing. So, but relationships really are the only way for me to get out of this sort of problem that you might have. In the end, if someone doesn't have the money, you have an issue. There are, of course, also examples of distributors going bankrupt, even ones that used to be very good and something happened, and that's just a risk of doing business in essence. That's something I'm emphasizing here as important to maintain the relationship and keep a finger on what's happening with the family, what's happening with the business, basically, and not just treating it like another customer, so to speak. It's really your partner and an extension of yourself. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to us for either project or just some advice or just to say hello, alex@devriessalesconsultancy.com. Feel free to send me an email and I'll gladly respond. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.